So, this is it, the Amphibia finale, and boy, what a finale we got. I don't think anyone expected just how big the Amphibia finale would be. Like, this is Frog Show, and this is split over 3 separate episodes, something we haven't seen since the days of Gravity Falls. And yes, I do believe this is indeed a perfect finale. But to be completely honest, it took me a while to figure out how to cover this in a video. Do I just talk about the last episode? Do I talk about the finale arc? Does the 3 armies count as a part of that? But I ultimately decided that you can't talk about what makes this finale perfect if you don't start at the beginning of the end. It's really what sets everything off and guides all the final character arcs the ending tackles. Plus, the division between episodes is part of what makes this series' ending so unique. So let's take a look at how Amphibia created not only a third perfect season finale, but a perfect series finale. Watching this finale play out week to week was an absolute joy. From the lead-in with beginning of the end, to the event that was all in, to the final episode, the hardest thing, each episode brought so much fandom excitement and hype in a way that really worked for the ending. Rather than cram everything into one big finale, it's all spread out, and this allowed the creative teams to give each episode its own identity and feel, and address different aspects of the series that needed to be concluded. The beginning of the end is just that. The episode that ties the late Season 3 building and army arc together and serves to reintroduce Marcy into the story after she basically went unmentioned in late Season 3 until this episode. We see where Marcy was wronged in the friendship and needs forgiveness, and the conflict Sasha and Anne face with regards to forgiving her.
She got us stuck here on purpose, Anne. I know she was freaking out about moving, but it's still super messed up.
We've all made mistakes, Sasha. And besides, maybe we're partially to blame.
And the war begins. Lots of essentials here. The gang finally meets Darcy. The rebellion charges into war like Lord of the Rings, apparently, which I don't really know because I still haven't seen it yet. And Andreas does his little lightsaber murder dance. This really is the Avengers Endgame battle of the series and has lots of character payoffs and moments that bring the fight to life. This episode serves the side characters of Amphibia well, which is important because they have very little to do in the rest of the finale. The episode ends on a cliffhanger with Andreas' invasion of Earth, which brings us to All In. All In is the big one, like full-blown action-packed epic one. The episode chronicles Andreas' invasion of Earth from start to finish and serves many purposes in the finale story, the most important of which is completing Anne's journey of self-worth. She finally realizes that she is content with who she wants to be, which the flashbacks emphasize. She's not the same person that she was, and now has a real gusto for life, which she desperately needs when the world's fate rests on her one-on-one with Andreas.
You went from Santa Claus to supervillain pretty quick there.
Touché.
We also get the beginning of Sprig's arc as he starts to realize how things are going to change permanently, and coming to terms with that. And Sasha also comes to terms with the fact that she isn't the same anymore. Andreas' arc receives some work as well, with all the hints of his apprehension about the invasion and hurting everyone coming to a head, where he ultimately decides, after hearing Leif's letter, to give up everything and do what little he can after 1,000 years of pain. And of course, this episode finally brings us full circle with Marcy and her arc of realizing that perhaps Sasha and Anne weren't the best friends and didn't take note of her interests, but also that she shouldn't have forced them to come to Amphibia against their wills. But it's this realization that allows her to break free from the dream-esque mindscape of the core and not be assimilated once it's defeated. Oh yeah, this also serves to give a lot of the Earthside characters one final moment to shine, including Anne's parents, who are awesome. And it finally brings closure to the death of Sprig and Polly's parents, with the Planters confronting the Herons to save Anne's parents, being such a fantastic moment. It works well for all this to be an all-in, because it allows the final episode to breathe, as it's able to deal with the one most climactic, anticipated piece of lore in the show, the prophecy of the Calamity Powers. The hardest thing gives us so much more than we anticipated, finally paying off the moon foreshadowing, which, may I remind you, I saw coming from Season 1. The final standoff and defeat of the core, Andreas officially standing up to his dad, and dying, the goodbyes, the flash forward, my goodness. I think this is my favorite part of the finale for sure, but it shines so strong because of all the work the previous 2 episodes did to clean up the story. It allows this episode to feel very focused and not feel rushed, to take time for Anne to have a long conversation with the Guardian, to have individual goodbyes for the three girls, to check up on all the characters in a flash forward. This structure functions very well to give each part of the story a moment to shine that works contextually within the larger narrative of the episode. Each feels distinct, and it's so effective at creating this feeling of a big event. Beginning of the end is the dark start. All in is the bright, epic middle chapter with strong winds for our heroes. And the hardest thing is the reign of the night, where the bright colors of orange, blue, pink, and green constantly stand out against the darkness of space. My point is, it works on a story level and a visual level to split the episodes this way, and it's one of the things that makes this ending perfect when you look at how these episodes work in comparison to the traditional 11-minute episode pairs. In both of my previous videos on Amphibia's season finales, I talked at length about how recontextualization of past events is such a powerful tool and so important for giving a season finale weight in the story. And boy oh boy does this season finale do that. For one, we finally get full context for the prophecy, and how it was given as more of a cry for help than a declaration. We get more context of Marcy's journey, how she was treated by Anne and Sasha, to her relationship with Andreas. We get context to Andreas' relationship with the Corps, and how he's been hesitant since even meeting Marcy, and the constant abuse of his father through the Crown. We get context to the founding of Wartwood, and how the town started with Leaf. And most of all, we get context to the stones and their purpose in the first place.
I created the stones to see how mortals would handle unlimited power. Turns out, not that well. Would you believe after about 10,000 years, you're the only individual who used that power for good?
So much foreshadowing pays off here, from Anne referring to Domino as an interdimensional being earlier in the season, to the constant presence of the Red Moon, to Leaf's letter and place in Planter history, to Andreas' hints of regret, to, of course, the teases of the Calamity powers. We were all waiting on that to pay off for years, and that scene was absolutely worth the wait. But with the context of where the story goes, how the Earth arc plays into the story, and why the army building episodes were important, it makes the entire season and series better on rewatch. Not to mention it puts the story into perspective by recontextualizing the girls' friendship through the lens of being what it was, a middle school girls' friendship, formed largely by circumstance and not because they were friends who worked well together necessarily. It was a story of a very specific time in these girls' lives when each of them got to grow and change as people through their journeys in Amphibia and learn lessons that they would carry with them throughout their lives. And it makes the time we spend with them in the show all the more valuable, and their reunion all the sweeter. This finale allows you to look back on the series in awe of how carefully threaded each character's arc was. And with that additional context of where Marcy was in the trio, what Anne had just been through with being assigned the paper and how she felt about herself, and the parental abuse and loneliness Andreas had been experiencing for his mistake 1,000 years ago, it's so weird to think that we didn't even know King Andreas or Marcy until midway through season 2. But this finale really does pay off everything set up to this point, and recontextualizes the entire series in light of both the twists and resolutions. All great finales should have an element of fun, in my opinion, if your show is a comedy in any part. And Amphibia's does not disappoint. The threat of Darcy as they insult Anne and seem to have the upper hand, the K-pop scene, the cameo return of Maggie, the Planter family dance, the Sasha and Anne dance fight, the satisfaction of Mossman joining the endgame battle, the return of the Grubhog to war. All of these moments and many more that I haven't mentioned are sprinkled throughout the episode so that you just cheer on and scream, yes, as loud as you can at the screen. Epic moments like this transition, or this animation, or really just any win our heroes get is triumphant. If your finale spends too much time on one singular threat, or doesn't have any fun with its story, especially being a comedy, then in my eyes it's failed. And thankfully this finale doesn't have all of its eggs in one basket by any stretch of the imagination. But above and away the most joyous moment in the whole finale is the Calamity Trio fight. Oh my gosh, this had me laughing hysterically when I watched it for the first time, cheering along over and over. It's so triumphant, just exactly what we've been waiting for the entire length of the show, to see the girls all get powers and go full Calamity mode. They absolutely destroy the Corps' arsenal of robots, each in their own unique way, with Anne using her tennis racket and domino powers, Sasha using cheerleading powers, and Marcy throwing a magical dive, reclaiming it from Darcy. This whole scene is beautifully storyboarded and animated, and perfect in every way. And I didn't even talk about the music. It's set to an awesome, no big deal, big band remix that just embodies fun. That's it. This scene is fun if you looked it up in the dictionary. This finale has some of the strongest wins for these characters ever. overcoming fear, protecting each other, knocking out robots, gaining the upper hand, winning battles, and most of all perhaps, Anne, Sasha, and Marcy finally reuniting and forgiving each other. It just keeps you cheering throughout. However, good finales aren't all kittens and rainbows. If they were, most wouldn't be considered the best episode of the series, and let's be honest, most aren't. It's a fine balance for perfection. Wins need to match losses. I've talked about this before, but there has to be a positive-negative scene direction, where each scene involves things getting progressively better or progressively worse. Nothing stagnating, and this finale has that in spades. They made it into the castle, Olivia and Yunan are possessed. The fight is going well? Nope, it's over. Grime and Sasha's plan almost works. Nope, Grime loses an arm. Oh, Sasha's beating Darcy to K-pop? Psych! Sliced up the back. But that's all small avocados compared to the finale episode, which has some of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the entire series. While also having the most fun scene in the series, it also has multiple of the saddest, from Sprig saving Anne as she dies and everyone watching her pass away, to the final goodbyes of each of the girls to their respective found family. And these goodbyes, man, they'll get ya. Marcy's just kind of weak because she's just like, yeah, we only really hung out in 1 or 2 flashbacks, so sorry about that. But Andreas' reaction to her goodbye is truly heartbreaking.
Goodbye, Andreas.
Take care, kiddo.
Sasha and Grimes is my favorite, as it's just hilarious, and if you've seen it, you know. And Anne saying goodbye to the planters, well, it's heart-wrenching. And her goodbye to Sprig is devastating. He clearly can't handle it. The animation supporting this is just beautiful. The finale was clearly given such stellar care and attention to by the crew and animation teams, and it just makes every moment a gut punch. Anne's final monologue, the final shot, the credits of the episode. So much sadness, but all good and meaningful and that makes sense in the context of the story. The pacing lets these sad scenes breathe and you feel so much for these characters because again, the episodes are split up so that each can do an even amount of heavy lifting. I might be conflating sad with emotional in this section, but I think you get my general point. A perfect finale should pull on your heartstrings and make you feel all the feels, good and bad. And this episode features enough character struggles, sad emotional beats, character L's, and final goodbyes to balance out all the triumphant, satisfying, upbeat moments. The series ends on a rather contemplative, somber note, which works so well after all the ups and downs and spins arounds and resolutions, and I think that's just fantastic. It's been hard to dance around this for most of the video, but you can't discuss the Amphibia finale without discussing the crazy, out-of-left-field twist that is Anne's death, conversation with the Calamity deity, and resurrection. There's been a significant amount of discussion about whether this works or not, and I think it 100% does. For one, it provides external confirmation that Anne is willing to do anything to protect those that she loves, which is such a massive character shift for her from the start of the show. But it also completes the story of the stones. As one of the biggest mysteries of the show, we get a full answer as to why they exist and their purpose in the larger narrative. But Anne's conversation with the Guardian goes beyond that, as she gets to state the lesson of the show.
No one's perfect. My time in Amphibia taught me that we're all changing and improving and learning as we go. Every time I hit an obstacle, I found a way to overcome it.
Anne has to reject the Guardian's offer to show that A, she's still humble despite her heroic moments, and B, she's just a kid who wants to go back home and live life. Showing the Guardian the error of their ways is the perfect conclusion, because nobody's perfect. This scene wraps up the larger narrative and lore of the show perfectly, from how it was foreshadowed earlier on, to the way it ends with a joke about how long Anne will live. It's just really, really well thought out. Anne gets to have that heroic sacrifice moment, the fans get the lore, and Matt actually gets to kill one of the girls this time.
Stay away from there, it's fragile. Well, I suppose the plan will work with two.
Yes, Anne did die. Her shoe is on the other foot when she returns, which means this is an imperfect copy, and according to the OWCA bylaws, that means she died. It just works well. It's powerful, it's mysterious, it's funny, and it restates the show's message beautifully. With both previous season finale breakdowns, I took a portion to talk about how absolutely off the charts awesome the music is, and this finale is no different. TJ Hill pulls out all the stops to bring together the most orchestral, intense, beautiful score the series has had thus far. There's too many moments to count, from the aforementioned big band remix of No Big Deal, to the rearranging of every theme from throughout the series in the credits score. There's something for everyone. Just listen to the score by itself at work or school sometime. It's posted on his SoundCloud for free. I'll link it in the description. My personal favorite moment is when Sasha and Grime break into absolute tears, and this cover of Sasha's theme Heartstomper plays, just adding to the perfection of them sobbing about having to leave each other.
I'm gonna miss you so much!
Comment your favorite musical moment from the episode below, but yeah, the music brings this episode from great to perfect. It's cinematic, honestly. The final and perhaps most important thing that brings this finale from great to perfection is how it ends in such a way as to fulfill the themes and messages that the show has been presenting from day one. One of the biggest complaints about the DuckTales finale was how, spoiler alert, Webby being a clone of Scrooge takes away from the show's message about found family. And while I don't necessarily agree with those criticisms, it definitely throws a wrench in a perfect thematic resolution. However, Amphibia from day one has been about change. The good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And nothing embodies it more than this finale. It's a fitting theme because, well, amphibious creatures embody change. They start as tadpoles and develop into frogs or toads or whatever else. Throughout the ending, Sprigg struggles to accept the idea that things will eventually change between him and Anne, and that she'll have to return home. The core is the antithesis of change, a hive mind of beings dedicated to preserving old ways of thinking through unnatural eternal life. So focused on winning and being right that it would prefer Amphibia destroyed so it can make a point about being more powerful. Sometimes we're forced into change, like Anne being unable to return to Amphibia. Other times, change happens slowly and naturally, like Anne and Sasha drifting apart in high school. Some change takes thousands of years, other things don't change and just weigh on your heart, like Leaf and Andreas' friendship. Some people resist change and others embrace it. Anne says it best in her closing narration.
Change can be difficult, but it's how we grow. It can be the hardest thing to realize you can't hold on to something forever. Sometimes you have to let it go. But of the things you let go, you'd be surprised what makes its way back to you.
And this ending, with both flash forwards in particular, shows us that change. How time marches forward and how we should all make the most of the time we have. Even things like the Guardian wanting a change of pace of job. Being impressed by the change of pace. Someone using the stones for good. Few series finales can pull off this level of thematic resonance, and it's simply masterfully executed. Outside of that though, there's so many other things to praise. The voice cast here is at the top of their game. The animation team's at the top of their game. Some of these shots are just cinematic in quality across all three parts of the finale. The writing is spot on, the storytelling is satisfying. This ending does so much to bring the series together perfectly and give hope for the future that these characters will continue to live fun, interesting, and exciting lives forever impacted by the adventure that we were a part of. But the core, man, what a crazy villain concept though, right? Actually, that's just internet service providers taking your data and giving it to unknown third-party sources. So thankfully, today's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is here to help you. Seriously, Dimension Hoppers, when you're hopping from one internet portal to the next, you really don't want to be tracked. And ExpressVPN puts a stop to this by rerouting 100% of your internet activity through their secure, encrypted servers. That means big tech, ad tech, and Newtopa tech can't see your IP address and collect your data, meaning it's all yours. Their service also allows you to change your internet location. I get comments all the time about how Disney Plus UK has failed to upload the latest episodes of, well, anything, and how the free episodes on Disney Channel's YouTube page are all region locked to the US. Well, in just a few clicks, you can change your location to the US and enjoy all the new content you like. With 24/7 customer support, an easy-to-use interface, and the fastest servers in the VPN business, ExpressVPN is your all-in-one VPN provider. Click the link in the description to sign up today and get 3 months free. That's right, just give that link a click and enjoy your 3 free months. Thank you so much to ExpressVPN for sponsoring today's video, and thank you for checking them out. And if you like this video, check out my video on True Colors and what makes that such a perfect season finale. And in all honesty, still my single favorite episode of the series. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back in Dimension 1.